Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodhi, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we have got news. We are probably not going to do an interview because at the moment, I'm just getting my teeth kicked in. There's so much to do right now. I mentioned that I was taking all of March off. I have testing that I have to take part in April. So I've got some things planned with my family, and then I want to study for my test, and I want to just free up April. So I'm not doing any podcasting of any sort in April. But that means that I'm trying to get something, or not April, but March. But that means that I'm trying to get some things buttoned up. Like I have to record 8 extra episodes on top of recording the current episodes that I'm recording for this show. That means I have to get all of the episodes for Beyond the Post, the podcast I do with Rob Dunwood about, being a content creator. I have to get all of that done, edited and posted. And then I have work and I have a second job that I have to take classes for. And I have my current job and then I have my family. So yeah, it's just really, really busy, but it's fun. I'm really having a good time being this busy. I wish it wasn't as busy as it was, but uh, I'm learning a lot and I'm having a good time. So that's the important part. Now, I did have an opportunity to be on the Daily Tech News Show briefing or DTNS briefing. And I spoke with Tom about the really affordable EVs that are coming out of China. My portion of that show is about 5 to 7 minutes long, but if you're not familiar, the Daily Tech News Show briefing is a 25 to 30 minute, and it might even be 20 to 30 minute show where they just kind of lay out the tech news. It's no nonsense. They get right to the facts. So if you're into tech news, I would highly suggest you check it out. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to my episode, but from there you can go and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the Daily Tech News Show briefing. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the news. Will the 2025 Chevy Blazer be the last ICE version or internal combustion engine version or gasoline version, depending on how you want to look at this, sold in the United States? So, GM Authority spoke with sources close to the matter, and they said that GM's going to get rid of the gas-powered Chevy Blazer after the 2025 model year. The EV version will still be active and available, but the gas version's going away. Maybe. Maybe it's going away because Electrek reached out for a statement and GM said, we have no portfolio changes to share and will not comment on speculation. So we will keep an eye on this story and update you as we learn more. By the way, I have a special spot in my heart for the Chevy Blazer. My wife and I bought like a 1982 Lincoln when we got married, when this car was just a boat. It was super cool in a lot of ways, but we were in our 20s or early 20s and we're driving around this old, nice Lincoln. It did not fit our age. It was a much older car than we were in terms of style, let's put it that way. And after a while of being able to work, and we were able to afford a used Chevy Blazer that had heated seats, and it was amazing. And it had quite a few miles on it when we bought it, but I have a special place in my heart for the Chevy Blazer. So there's no useful information in what I just told you. It's just I have very fond memories of that vehicle, and I felt very sophisticated because number one, we were able to buy this really nice car. And number two, it had leather seats. And if I'm remembering right, the driver's side was heated, but not the passenger side. But I might be misremembering. Anyway, next month, which is March 2025, Hyundai will show off its new solid-state EV battery. And they're not just showing off the battery, they're showing off the pilot line, which is not a production line. This is just a test line, right? And the batteries are called Dream batteries. And these solid state batteries are supposed to have more range. They'll offer faster charging and higher energy density. And they're also supposed to be safer than the traditional lithium ion batteries that we're using now. I've talked a lot about solid state batteries, so I'm not going to go over that again here. But even though, we're just talking about a pilot line, again, not for production, this is a huge step for Hyundai in getting solid state batteries into their vehicles. Right now, Hyundai says they should have a prototype EV outfitted with this new battery by the end of 2025. Again, don't expect production anytime soon, but just the fact that Hyundai and other companies are testing this out as well, just the fact that they're to the point of being public about what they're testing, this is good news for us. Maybe 5 to 7 years we'll actually see this in vehicles that we can purchase. The BYD Atto 2 has arrived in Europe, and it is set to compete with the likes of the Volvo EX30, which has been very well received, not only in Europe, but everywhere else that they're selling that vehicle. People seem to really like it. As far as the Atto 2 goes, it's a small electric vehicle. All of the models are going to include an 8.8-inch driver's display. So that's the heads-up display behind the steering wheel. It'll support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It'll have a panoramic sunroof, ergonomic seats. It's going to come in two different trims. The active trim, which will have a 10.1 rotatable infotainment screen, and the boost trim, which will have an upgraded 12.8 rotatable infotainment screen, heated steering wheel and seats. It's also going to have front parking radar and 360-degree cameras. In terms of specs and price, we don't have a lot of details yet. We actually don't have the price at all. We do have the WLTP range, which is how they determine range in Europe. And right now we're looking at 312 kilometers, which is about 193 miles. The BYD Atto 3, and from what I can see so far of the Atto 2, has been pretty well reviewed. As we learn more about the car, I will keep you updated. All right. I have a question for you. Do you have a business? And if you have a business, does your business rely on a fleet? And if you have a business that relies on a fleet, do you need commercial vans? And if you have a business that relies on a fleet and you need commercial vans, are you trying to transition to EVs? And then one final question. Can you afford to spend $80,000 on an electric van? Well, I have good news for you. You can now buy your very own Rivian commercial van. That's right. The same van that Amazon delivers your packages with, you can buy one of your very own. Now, you do have to have a business, and your business does need to operate fleets, like I said. But yeah, if you have an air conditioning business, or you're an electrician, or you do construction, or you're just delivering packages, this is a great option for you. The RCV 500 which is Rivian commercial van is RCV, and the RCV 700 both offer about 161 miles of range, or 259 kilometers. The 500 is going to set you back $80,000, but if you wanted to go for the slightly bigger 700, that'll set you back $84,000, which honestly I don't think is that bad in terms of price. My father-in-law has it's not a Sprinter van, it's a Dodge. It's whatever the Dodge equivalent of a Sprinter van is for his motorhome. And he paid quite a bit more than $84,000 for his motorhome. And this is quite a bit bigger. I actually talked recently to the CEO of Harbinger, and they build chassis, electric chassis for box trucks, like what the Rivian's doing. And we talked a little bit about RVs, and we'll have that interview out, I think, the first Tuesday in March. It's a pretty interesting conversation. So I think this space is really, really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Rivian does, and if they open this up to businesses or just regular people who want to outfit their own RVs, because that's what I would be most interested in, is outfitting an RV. I'd need to have more than 161 miles of range, but to me, that would be a pretty cool way to go. All right, everybody, that is it for our EV news. I do want to let you know that if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. And you can go there and you can pledge as little as $1, and all of the ads get completely taken away. You won't have to deal with them at all. And on top of that, you're supporting the show. All the money goes back into the show. None of the money goes into my own pocket. If you don't like Patreon for some reason, you can use Acast Plus. If you do use Acast Plus, would you please let me know because Acast Plus does not notify me when someone new signs up. So sometimes I miss it. So just shoot me an email, Bodie, Bodie, at 918digital.com. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our Tesla news. Got a few Tesla stories here for you. And our first item is less of a story and more of a recommendation. Tesla Owners Club Silicon Valley, they sat down with two Tesla engineers on X and they talked about the Model Y redesign. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, but if you want to kind of like an insider's view on the thought process that went into some of the features of the new Model Y, this is a really good interview. It's about 34 minutes long. I watched it on 1.5 speed and I was able to follow it just fine. If you don't want to spend 34 minutes watching it. It's a good interview. It's full of good information. You can follow the link that I'll put in the show notes, or you can follow Tesla Owners Silicon Valley at Tesla Owners SV on X. Ooh, before we move to our next story, though, I want to tell you my favorite part. At the end of the interview, they spend about 5 minutes walking around the Model Y and they talk about little features here and there. If you have never sat with an engineer, and I've been very fortunate to sit down with several of them now that have been doing this podcast and hear them talk about the things that went into designing a vehicle, it is it's almost a love letter. Like these folks take so much pride in what they do, and when they see a problem and they solve that problem and they walk you through it, I have never had an experience where I was talking to an engineer and they were talking about how they designed something like the suspension. I talked to the one of the folks that designed the rear suspension or was part of designing the rear suspension in the original Rivian R1T, and the conversation, like the amount of passion this person had when he was talking about all of the things that they had to overcome and why this suspension's better than this other suspension system over here, or over there. And this one particular engineer, as I was talking to him, he was like, "Do you see that trailer over there? I designed the suspension system in that trailer, and you see this over here? I was a part of designing the suspension system in that." And they just tell stories. They love talking about this stuff, and it is, for me anyway, it is just like captivating. I love sitting down with engineers and learning what problem needed to be solved, how they solved it, and then what things needed to go in place, like in the factory, to make sure that they can make these in scale. Because it's easy to solve a problem for one vehicle. It is much harder to solve a problem at scale, right? So, Tesla obviously found that out when they were doing the Model 3, the Model X, and the Model Y production, and probably the Model S too, but there wasn't as much of a spotlight on them when the Model S was coming out. But yeah, to bring it back around to this interview, they walk around the vehicle, and one of my favorite parts of the talk was they built in technology. They have like a 4D radar, and one of the things that the 4D radar does is it will recognize when there's a child left in the car. And it does this in a variety of different ways. I'm not going to go into that here. But for me, as a firefighter, I have been on so many car calls where kids have been left in the car. Most of the time, they work out just fine. The cops are called. I don't know how it works out after we leave, but the child is normally fine. And it doesn't mean, I should say, just because a kid gets locked in a car, it doesn't mean that a parent was negligent. It could just be that they got out to do something real quick, shut the door because they weren't thinking, and they locked their keys in the car. Like things like that happen all the time. But in warmer climates like here in Arizona, it could be deadly. So some of the things that Tesla has done is it will, if it recognizes that there's a child in the car or an elderly person. I've been to plenty of calls where elderly people have been forgotten in buses and cars and things like that. It will recognize that someone's in the car. It'll keep the car cool. It will try to notify the owner. If they can't notify the owner, it'll eventually contact emergency services. So that's pretty cool technology. And I'm really thrilled that it is in the new Model Y. All right, let's move on. This is This is a story where I've heard a lot of speculation, and most of this stuff is on TikTok, I'll be honest with you. Let me get to the story. Tesla's CFO and the head of the board of directors, which is Robin Denholm, and Elon's brother, Kimball Musk, they have all sold millions of dollars worth of stock recently. And some are theorizing that this is proof that Tesla's leadership or insiders or executives or board of directors don't they see the writing on the wall and the company's headed for a downfall. So these folks are getting their money while they can. And to that, I say maybe that's true. I am not a finance person and I'm not going to pretend to know all of the rules of the FTC and things that you need to follow when it comes to being an insider and selling your stock, right? But there are a lot of rules when it comes to company insiders like executives and board members who sell their stock, and Kimball Musk is still a board member. Typically, these type of folks have a predetermined plan in which, there's a certain date that their stocks are going to be sold on, and there's a certain amount of shares that they're going to sell, and sometimes there's a certain price that they're going to sell at. All of this is in a plan that is scheduled out. It doesn't typically happen, and I'm not going to say ever, but it doesn't typically happen in a day. It's typically that these things have to be scheduled out months in advance before they can even sell their stock. Otherwise, it could be considered insider trading. And to kind of put a little bit more weight on this, a broker has to sign off that this isn't insider trading, as well as whoever's selling the stock. So again, I've seen some things out there that are theorizing that this is a sign of Tesla's downfall. Sales are down, and now the leadership, they're selling their stock because they know that it's not going to be worth anything soon. Not necessarily the case. And by the way, the sales were down, but they weren't down that much. Tesla still beat all of the other EV manufacturers out there except for BYD in certain circumstances. So, yeah, it's not it's not exactly a running for the hills moment for people who have stock in Tesla. Like, you should certainly pay attention to this story, but I don't think that it's a sign of the downfall of the company. All right, we got two more stories. Tesla is building a new battery repair facility in Australia, to be more specific, Western Australia. And the battery repair facility is actually going to be near one of the big mega pack storage sites that Tesla built for certain energy companies in Australia. And that battery repair site, when it's all built, it will repair and renew mega packs, but it will also work on power walls as well. I kind of thought it was a neat story, so thought it was worth sharing. All right, here is our final story. Tesla is once again offering free supercharging if you buy or lease a Model X or Model S. And when I say free supercharging, I mean free for as long as you own the vehicle or lease the vehicle. There are some caveats, and if you're planning on purchasing a Model S or Model X, you should definitely read through the agreement you have to sign before purchase. But if you're going to use your car for commercial reasons, then you don't get to take part in the free supercharging. So it excludes folks who are going to use their car for ride sharing, delivering, any other type of business. And if Tesla catches you doing that, then they're going to take it away. I'm not sure how their auditing process is going to work for that, but they have all the telemetry data. They'll figure it out. If you go to Walmart 16 times a day and you're using only supercharging, that's gonna raise some red flags. Oh, and there's one little bit of news, which is kind of a bummer. If you're planning on buying a Model X in the United States, you're going to pay $5,000 more. So that is a little bit of a bummer. I'm going to go to Tesla's website right now and look and see what the price is. So if you want to buy the all-wheel drive, Model X, you're looking at $85,000. And if you want the plaid, that jumps up to $100,000. Now, if you want to lease it, let's pull up the lease prices here. It's $7,500 down for a 36-month lease, 10,000-mile allowance. You're looking at leasing it for $1,150, or that's for the all-wheel drive. Or if you want to go with the plaid, it's $1,300 for the plaid. So maybe Tesla doesn't have the best lease deals on the Model X, now that I think about it. But yeah, if you're interested in that kind of thing, you're going to pay a little bit more money, just so you know. All right, everybody, that is it for me today. If you have questions, please reach out to me. It's Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. You can also find me on X at 918digital. Someday, when I have a little bit more time, you will find me on other social media sites as well. I have plans for this show. Unfortunately, I don't have time to implement those plans, but there will come a time that I'll have more time on my hands. So, uh, just so you know, I've got plans. I want to make the show better. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and you're having a wonderful week. And I am going to do my best to get this show back on schedule for Tuesdays and Fridays. So my goal is to have a show on Friday. It might come out on Saturday morning, but my goal is Friday. Fingers crossed. We'll see what we can do. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. I will talk to you sometime soon.